I said, don't worry about any of those numbers. Only number that matters is Pat Goodell, the great pollster who just died, just passed away, had been doing work for years. For the first time in American history, in his polling, the American people, particularly the working class and the middle class, believed America was in decline. 70%. And specifically, they believed that our elites not only were comfortable with that, but were comfortable with managed decline. The Trump revolution started with this reaction about managed decline of the American elites, foisted upon a citizenry that for unacceptable outcomes, they didn't want it. Whether it's the southern border, whether it's the manufacturing jobs that left for China, whether it's these kind of pointless foreign wars we've been in, on and on and on. Those are the three pillars. What President Trump really turned around and focused on, and compared Hillary Clinton as kind of the guardian of this kind of globalist elite. Remember, after we went in that big shock, Prime Minister Abe, breaking all kind of tradition and custom, left a conference, I think the following week, and came up to talk to the then president-elect. And his warning was about China. The entire transition with Mike Flynn and others, it was to look at how we start to pivot. Not this kind of marketing ploy that the Obama administration had, this pivot to Asia, but really pivot for the great geopolitical struggle of the 21st century. That's between two very different systems. And this is what I think is Speaker Gingrich said about the infantile nature of the mainstream media, that have not defined this. But I tell you who did define it. If you go back to the third week of January in 2017, there are two speeches given. One is in Davos, my favorite place, right? The other's in Washington, D.C., a couple of blocks from here. One, President Xi goes to Davos and gives a speech on globalization. And he is lauded as the savior of the globalization project. It's on The Economist, the Financial Times of London, that here's a man that speaks with wisdom. Here's a man that speaks with understanding. Here's a very sophisticated voice. And a couple of days later, President Trump, the media calls it the American Carnage speech, but really, what it really was, he said, now comes the hour of action. Right? Now comes the hour of action. We will, I think the quote is, we will form new alliances and rejuvenate old ones, and unite the civilized world to eradicate radical Islamic terrorism from the face of the earth. And then to pivot simultaneously in this great geopolitical struggle. What she, and you gotta remember, when he's at Davos, and they're all sitting there, all the McKinsey guys, all the Booz Allen guys, all the law firms, all the accounting firms, Goldman Sachs, my old firm, all the commercial banks, all of them. They went to the best schools in the world. They worked in the smartest places in the world. They got total information at their fingertips. You're telling me they don't know about the Uyghurs? They don't know about the underground Christian church. They don't know about the underground Catholic church. They don't know about the Dalai Lama. They don't know about the social credit score. They do not know about the enslavement of the Chinese people. Sure they know. And they don't care. The Committee on 100, this highfalutin group of the best, they have their, I think, black tie dinner on Saturday night. They put out a press release on Sunday, right? This is some of the elites of the American financial and corporate community. And guess what the problem is? You know what the problem is? You're racist, right? This is about racial profiling. Tell that to the Chinese people that are enslaved. Tell that to the freedom fighters here from China, Lian Chanhan, Sasha Gong, all the great patriots that have fought for their fellow man in China. This is a scam. Allison, Graham, he and Kissinger got this, the Thucydides trap. This is the new thing, right? Thucydides trap. It's the same scam they ran back in the 70s, right? It's the reason the Committee on Present Danger existed. It's the reason Andy Marshall, when I sat down with Frank Gaffney and I talked to the great Andy Marshall, one of the architects of the victory that we had in the Cold War. Same scam. You know, Soviet Union's the rising power, we're the declining power, we gotta, you know, I took the Naval War colleges, first thing, Peloponnesian War, gotta understand it, gotta study Peloponnesian War, because we're a declining power, they're the rising power. Gotta have SALT, gotta have détente, gotta have rapprochement, gotta have it all, right? Complete and total scam by the same guys, the same universities, the same elite, the same people that mock and ridicule Donald Trump every day and mock and ridicule the people in the red MAGA hats every day. The same people that brought us victory in the Cold War. What did Andy Marshall and Bill Casey say? I think there's something wrong here. I don't think the Soviet economies, I don't think they're that big. They did the analysis. This wasn't a 5% miss, it wasn't a 10% miss. The economy was half the size we had been projecting for decades. That's what the Reagan defense plan was. Frank knows this. It's an economic war. We can never build a 600-ship Navy. I was a naval officer. I was a junior officer back as I came off sea duty in the South China Sea to be a junior officer in the Pentagon for the Chief of Naval Operations. See the war plan. It was an economic plan to bury them. That's what Star Wars was. Right? You think you match the conventional weapons? We'll see you one. Right? And of course the CIA then projected it's going to take us 50 years to destroy them. It took us 8. 8. Because a very simple man with simple convictions in California said, hey, these guys are smaller than California, just like the Russians today are smaller than New York State, but this city is obsessed with them, right? They don't look at the greatest existential threat we've ever had. You can't see that. Reagan saw it. What did he tell Dick Allen? When Dick Allen, you know, when Dick Allen said, "Don't say geopolitical, don't be Brzezinski, don't be thing," just, you know, he says, he says geopolitical and shuts up and says, "Mr. President, what are your thoughts?" How about this, Dick? We win, they lose, right? Let's go back to that speech. Donald Trump is looked at as a barbarian. What Donald Trump is reinforcing is the Westphalian system. This is a radical, these are two systems that are incompatible. One side is going to win and one side is going to lose. President Xi, this is not the Chinese people. The Chinese people are one of the most noble people that have ever walked the earth. They've been oppressed and abused for millennia. And now under a new emperor, this radical, and it's a radical cadre of the CCP, with Xi and Wang Xishan and all of them, out to suppress the Chinese people and to have a, as they say in the thought of Chairman Xi, which is now, you know, the same level of Deng and Mao, the most, you know, most important thinking international affairs in 300 years. I think that's the Treaty of Westphalia. We believe, we're nationalists, and we believe in the nation state, and we believe in the nation state as on the shoulders of a free citizenry. That those nations will work it out. But the Xi's plan is very different, and this is why the party at Davos is cheering him. It's a network effect. That's what One Belt, One Road, made in China 2025 and 5G. That's the surface. That's what they're doing. Look, the underlying thing is they've taken the three great geopolitical strategies of the 20th century. Mackinder's, control the Eurasian landmass, number one. Mahan controlled all the naval choke points like the British and the Americans, number two. And Speakman, control the rim of Asia and force your enemy off. No country, Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great, Hitler, Charles, take it, all of them. Nobody's ever tried to do all three at one time. That's what the Chinese are doing. One Belt, One Road is just to connect the Eurasian landmass and sub-Saharan Africa and Latin America and the Caribbean I just came back from 5 weeks on the road. Japan, Michigan and Ohio for rallies. Brazil, we're having meeting President Bolsonaro here, and then Italy. You know what the #1 conversation topic at all these places is? China. People forget Bolsonaro, the third leg of his stool was at not just law and order in traditional society. His third leg of his stool is, I don't mind China buying into Brazil, they're not going to buy Brazil. When I'm in Italy, it's just not the $30 billion of memorandums of understanding that they announced, right, with one side of the Italian government, or the $60 billion they announced in France. It's the secret deal that they talk about with the Vatican, right? That we've now given, in a crisis in the church where you can't have any lady say anything about selection of bishops, we've turned over to the most atheistic, radical regime about religion to pick bishops in the Catholic Church. So now they can concentration camps for the Uyghur. They just announced the reincarnation of the Dalai Lama has got to get their sign off, right? Got to be their guy, got to be approved. Underground Catholic Church thrown on the bus by, besides the Dalai Lama, the second most holy man in all of Asia, Cardinal Zen, who says, you are throwing living saints under the bus. The network effect. And that's what Made in China 2025, it's advanced chip design, artificial intelligence, robotics, the merger of that with One Belt, One Road, and 5G. And 5G is not just about downloading movies quicker. It is 10 orders of magnitude different. It is the Internet of Things. And most importantly, and this is what Huawei knows, remember, Huawei's not associated with the PLA. Huawei's not some partner of the PLA. Huawei is the People's Liberation Army. To show you how bad this situation is, when Canada, the nicest folks in the world, when they hold her so that we can extradite her, that tells you how far it's gone. 5G turns data into plutonium that can be weaponized. And they intend to do it. The most depressing thing about Speaker Gingrich's, who's one of the wisest men I know, was to say that we're pre the Kennan memo. If that's the case, we're in very bad shape. The purpose for the colleagues at the South China Morning Post, one of the great papers in the world, one of the single purposes, besides doing research and papers, we have to get out into this country and we have to get internationally. The quality of people in this room that can speak truth to the American people, speak truth to the people in the world. Remember, free people in the world don't want to be under the totalitarian regime of the radical cadre that runs the Chinese Communist Party. If you look at what the Chinese people can achieve, at the age of 21, when I pulled into Hong Kong, look at Hong Kong. When you have the rule of law, when you have freedom of speech and freedom of religion, there's nothing the Chinese people cannot accomplish. And when you look at what the Chinese have accomplished here in the United States of America, there's nothing the Chinese people cannot accomplish. President Trump needs your backing. We're engaged in this like we've never been engaged before on every level. From sending battle groups into the South China Sea to contest it through the Straits of Formosa. Tomorrow's the 40th anniversary of our alignment with Taiwan. The call of the president, of whom we took when I was chief strategist. This is the defining event of our time. And 100 years from now, this is what they're going to remember us for. And what I will guarantee you, we're going to identify those members of the elite that sold us out and continue to sell out the American people and sell out the Chinese people. I'm honored to be part of this and honored to speak to you today. Thank you.
Okay, we literally have to clear the room before 3, so we're going to turn this over to